I just want to thank everyone for taking the time today and the introductions, Eduardo, to listen in on the webinar today to hear about how Mara, a molecular analysis and reasoning assistant, is able to help you democratize access to both the data in your organization, as well as the software or tools that you like to leverage as part of that. So another open-ended question here, but how many people have had the privilege to utilize this entire technology stack throughout their professional careers, or even in their own personal lives? Because it's in this forefront of XR-based products that Nanome's really been refining itself as a leader to develop software that allows discovery companies to have an intuitive interface to interact with their spatial data related to targeted-based drug discovery programs. But we've been looking at ways that we can extend out functional tools to help interface between the science and the data that's generated by that science in drug discovery companies. And we believe that Mara provides us this solution, giving us a tool that is applicable to the entire drug discovery pipeline. So what is Mara? What is a scientific co-pilot? Well, for us, a scientific co-pilot is a tool or an infrastructure that you can use to avoid time lost to data and software wrangling. It's a functional tool that keeps your scientists focused on science. And the way that we achieve that is by providing infrastructure that seamlessly integrates all of your existing tools and databases, and then leverages those tools and databases with conversational language to execute complex scientific workflows. Not only that, we're able to continually update and design Mara with extensibility in mind. You can be assured that access to an easy deployment of the most state-of-the-art tools is always supported in the Mara ecosystem. So in addition to the efficiency benefits you gain from implementing a system like this that connects all of your technology assets together, you also gain the added benefit of contextualizing why your scientists conduct experimentation and not just the experiments themselves. I'll go into that in a little bit more detail later on. So Mara is a combination of three key components. We leverage large language models to act as reasoning agents throughout the Mara platform. We use them as conversational agents that allows us to execute complex workflows. Now, those workflows are augmented by the organizational knowledge base, your preference for the types of tools and methodologies that you want to implement, as well as setting your own workflows and establishing multi-step stages that can be actuated with a single conversational interface. And what that allows you to do is execute a series of tools that provide interrogation and communication of the data that your organization is generating. So a tool could be anything. It could be an API endpoint, it could be a code Python snippet, or it could even be a query of an SQL database. So the extensibility of Mara is vast. So how does it actually work in the real world? Well, it's as simple as a scientist asking a question. So in this example here, we're doing a similarity search based on a chemical structure that was just drawn into the sketcher, where Mara is identifying and planning a potential plan using multiple different informatics tools and databases at its disposal. And what you can see that it's been able to retrieve a series of compounds, which you can further interact with this interactive data table. So you can add similarity values, or you can also add a synthetic accessibility score as part of this. So this on-the-fly interaction with your data is just one small example about how Mara could democratize access to data in your organization. A more complex example is the following. So in this example, we're simply asking Mara to find a binding pocket of the PDB code 5CEO and providing no additional context for what I want the system to do. And what it's able to do from that vague prompt is download the PDB from the RSCB website and provide that as an interactive visualization of the protein on the right-hand window pane there, whilst it continues to execute the plan of working out where those docking binding sites are located. So again, interactive visualization is immediately supported within Mara. On completion of that analysis of the potential binding pockets, it's then saving a second PDB file here, where you can now interact with that, spin the compound, conversationally execute that, where you can see on the left-hand panel, the data related to the Cartesian coordinates of each of those potential binding pockets. And on the right-hand side, you can see that I'm cycling through each of those potential binding pockets within the 5-CEO protein. You're also not limited to interacting with data from external services. In this example, what we're able to do is take a protein predicted by AlphaFold and prepare it for differential docking. So what we're doing here in this more advanced workflow is locating the binding pockets for that first protein of interest and then extracting a ligand from a second protein. With that extracted ligand, we're now optimizing it for docking. So we can schedule both the ligand that we extracted from the second protein and trial that into that first. So not only that, but this system is designed to integrate holistically. So in that last prompt, we actually just sent this model that we have represented here in the web app to a Mara instance. So you could have, a Nanome instance rather. So you could be viewing this exact same structure in VX space. And now in this more classical cheminformatics example, we wanted to really showcase the power of integrating Mara with other software vendors. So in this example, what we're doing is doing an R group decomposition analysis on a particular series of drug. And what we're doing is saving that analysis of the matched pair that are available so that we can further enumerate the missing pairs in Mara. So we're just taking some key information out of the C2D vault so that we can then actuate that information in Mara. So what we're doing in this moment now is extracting out that saved collection of compounds of interest so that we can further do R group decomposition with that SMILE string that you saw collected earlier. We're now, from that SMILE string, calculating which are the missing pairs for this analysis. Not only that, we're able to denote, or that Mara was able to recognize which fragments would be required for the synthesis, which we can then immediately query against a commercial supplier for those fragments to get those product codes. Now those product codes, as it's going to display in just one moment, could either be used to search your own internal databases for availability of your inventory management software, or it could even be used as this structured data file to order the desired compounds directly from Thermo Fisher. What we're next doing in Mara here is, as I mentioned, we're now asking Mara to enumerate all the potential compounds that could be leveraged with the fragments that we were able to purchase from Thermo. And you can now see that with all of those examples enumerated here, we want to store this information and these ideas of potential compounds back into C2D Vault and showing that closed loop interaction with Mara and other software vendors. So in this last section now, you can see that they've saved this project information back into a new project in C2D Vault that is designed to be a project that can help manage the scheduling of compounds for synthesis. So I mentioned earlier that we have tool extensibility as a key feature of the Mara ecosystem. So the way that we create tools within Mara is incredibly simple and requires no coding experience. You simply provide the context and the requirements for running a code snippet, paste it in, save that code snippet, and the tool is available for you to immediately utilize in the platform. So in this example here, we're just doing an alignment of two sequences. And then in this next example, I really just want to hone in on something that we've glossed over currently, and that's the transparency that's provided in the Mara platform. What you can see here is that in this chat history, we're going through both the tools that were executed, the input that was provided or contextualized from your prompt, as well as the output that Mara was able to generate for you. So over time, what this contextualization allows you to do is not only see the experimentations and documentation that you scientists do in designing experiments, but it gives you the contextualization of why they were asking the questions they were. which gives you better insight into the experimentations of your organization. Mara has always been designed to be enterprise ready. It is able to be fully deployed behind your own internal safe firewall and host both the Mara servers, the tool servers that can connect to your existing internal infrastructure. The only connections external would then be for authentication purposes or any whitelisted third-party tools and databases. This avoids any of the concerns related to leveraging large language models or big data capturing your data. You are always in full control of your data when utilizing Mara in an enterprise version. So what that provides is a secure access with all of the features needed to be enterprise ready. Single sign-on functionality, organizational permissions for controlling your internal use of which tools and querying accesses your scientists have access to, as well as the auditability and log histories that I showcased earlier. So what does that look like when you're fully deployed as an organization? You have a potential tool library like I've shown over here that has a combination of both databases, publicly and internal, as well as informatics tools that you might be using in your biology and chemistry processes. But also importantly, is we view Mara as a platform that can integrate holistically with all of your tooling throughout your organization, including your internal communication tools like Slack or Microsoft Teams. So what that would facilitate is a potential conversational chat like this, asking whether or not a compound synthesis has been successful, receiving some context to that question from Mara, and then further getting Mara to schedule experimentation. We view Mara as a tool that's able to manage the relationship of your data and experiments from the moment you leave the bench to the moment you're back at the bench. So in this example, it knows, well, we have an in-house expert that's able to help you with that type of binding assay. It's able to recognize that there's an ability to schedule a meeting in the coming weeks. So we're currently in the early stages of deploying Mara, where we're focusing on tool extensibility and coming up with impactful workflows with companies. But we believe the true benefit and value proposition of Mara comes from capturing the digital soul of your organization's research. Now, that's something that can only be realized as you embed Mara further and further into your organization so that you can have that unified access to both your data and software broadly across your company. So we're currently looking for partners to help us direct the product. And one of the benefits of being an early adopter of Mara is that you'll have the ability to influence the development roadmap. You'll gain early access to the enterprise version and the power that comes from utilizing the safe, secure deployment of Mara. And will help you integrate your existing tools and infrastructure safely behind your organization's firewall. And what we will commit to you is that we will help identify and prioritize the Mara use cases that have the highest impact to your team's drug discovery projects. But you're not limited to being a partner to try out Mara. It's possible to try Mara today. We've recently just released the public beta to Mara, which you can sign up for free today. No credit cards, no temporary trials required. Simply sign up at mara.nano.ai to gain 50 free credits where you can try some of the tools that we've discussed today. So I'd like to finish this presentation with another question. Who in the audience now feels like they want to leverage conversational interfaces for your internal infrastructure?
Thanks so much, Quillon, for that presentation. It's definitely a pleasure to see all the different use cases across all the different personas that would be applicable. One thing I do want to highlight and give a shout out to is CDD Vault, one of our first software vendor partners that allowed us to integrate with Mara directly and through their API. And so happy to announce that we do have a partnership with them and working with all of our mutual customers to help them leverage the benefits of both solutions here. right. So yeah, so as you go ahead and answer the poll, we also have some questions that came in. Perhaps we can tackle the first one here. So it says, for calculating synthetic accessibility score, the codes are developed by Nanome or it's open source? Please provide comments on validation. So that was an example that was leveraged from an open source initiative, but the purpose of this platform is to make it as extensible as possible. So if there are other synthetic accessibility algorithms that you would prefer, as long as it has an API that you can hit, or a Python script that you want to integrate yourself or any custom solutions out there, that's how you would access that. And the way that the tool or the platform determines which tool is based on how you name it. So if you call upon the tool name itself, it will leverage that tool. And you also have the ability to turn off and on different tools, per your queries. All right. So let's see here. We have, could you provide tutorials or examples you show in this presentation? Yeah, so we're actually putting out a series of blogs that follow the different workflows that were presented today. Keep in mind that the public beta does have some limitations, but all of these use cases presented today would work in an enterprise deployment. How secure would Mara be when distributing a .cif file or .pdb file, especially when it's not published? Yeah, so in an enterprise deployment, everything would be in-house. So there's no risk of leakage when everything is hosted. It's meant to be internally hosted. And in the public beta, yeah, I would not push any proprietary data on the public beta, but we're happy to discuss what an enterprise solution could look like for you.
But to iterate on what Edgardo said, the public beta is a fantastic location to try out some of the tools and functionality of the Mara platform, but it really is best just as a try before you buy type environment. If you want to really leverage the full power of the Mara ecosystem, we encourage you to talk to us. We're in early discussions with and have a couple of companies that we've onboarded as early adopters, and we're really able to work quite integrated with your organization to providing some of those more secure, sensitive deployments of Mara.
Yeah, so there's a question around how does Nano decide which tools to develop? What would you like to see from the community when it comes to tool building? And yeah, as I mentioned before, in the tool creation process, you can set the name and the description. And the more descriptive you are, the better the system will know to leverage that tool. And in an enterprise deployment, you also have the ability to decide whether it's a tool that is available only to you or for your entire organization. So you can, vary the accessibility to tools in that way as well.
We've got a great question here, Edgardo, from Jenna Darden. What is the validity of generated information through Mara? That's a great question. I'm guessing that your query here is related to sort of the hallucination issues that you face with large language models. We avoid that by not using the large language model itself as the origin of your knowledge base. We simply use large language model as reasoning agents in different ways throughout the Mara ecosystem. So we avoid the issue of hallucinations in the platform.
Great. There's another question around, is there an API available for this product? So, one of the things we didn't touch on is we're actually working on making this very accessible through so that it doesn't just have to live in this web UI that we presented. As Nanome, Mara will also be accessible in the XR ecosystem. But this means that we're building it in such a way that it can also be accessible through Jupyter notebooks by, for example, calling pip install Mara. And then you can leverage Mara in your own ecosystems as well.
So this is another one that I always love to see, people
mhm.
comparing us to potential competitors. So the question is, how does Mara compare against 310 AI and Low? So we also on the call today have our Chief Technology and Co-founder, Sam, on the call with us today. And I was thinking this might actually be a great question for him to address.
And so Sam is Nanome CTO and also another Nanome co-founder.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Yeah, following up on Edgardo's last questions before I switch over is Mara is meant to be API hittable. So if you want to integrate it into Slack or Teams or a third-party internal application that you have, you'll be able to do that. We do have a pick package that we haven't published all the way yet, but that'll allow you to kind of pip install and interact with Mara directly inside of a Jupyter notebook. So there's a lot of really good benefits to leveraging Mara in other applications as well. When it comes to there's a lot of kind of buzz in the community right now around agentic systems in chemistry and biology and protein design. And so we kind of see things emerge like Low and 310.ai. And so what we've seen from 310 is they have really good technology in protein design. And they really kind of focused on some of the core technologies that they have and adding tools very focused on protein design. We're very much a broad scientific informatics type of approach in the sense that we don't really have a domain specific thing that we're trying to build completely towards. It very much is we want to be as extensible as possible rather than scientific domain specifically focused, such that we can kind of leverage it across a large group of people. With Low, it's part of Recursion Pharma. Unfortunately, most people won't have access to that tool. It is really cool. It only leverages internal softwares that they have. So internal tools, internal graphs, internal databases, everything's kind of been really fine-tuned for their internal system. And you can use that if you partner with Recursion. So a lot of companies, won't do that. And so therefore, that technology won't really be commercially accessible to the rest of us. And so our approach very much is, a year and a half ago when I was tinkering with AI agents in chemistry, we solved all these problems, and all those problems people are still encountering today. And so we've kind of put in the work over a year and a half of actually building out a system such that you don't have to deal with all these uncertainties and the difficulties of scaling agents and tools, and you can kind of just get our platform installed. You have kind of this layer in your organization that can talk to third-party LLMs, whether it's GPT-4 and a self-hosted Azure or something you host yourself. That very much acts as a bridge to your internal tools and databases and can actually orchestrate those together. So we're very much on the extensibility and orchestration front around scientific informatics.
Thanks, Sam, for that in-depth answer. That was awesome.
Yeah, there was a question around, does Mara provide retrosynthesis routes? And the limitations of what Mara can do are only what tools it has access to. And so if there is, like I said, a script, Python script, or a REST API endpoint that you have access to that can help you acquire that information, then it can be available through Mara.
And I guess that same goes for another question that we had come in is, can you use Mara to generate a random library of molecules from a prompt? The answer is absolutely. If you have a tool that can help you enumerate a library, as you saw in that example where I was doing that R group decomposition, you can very easily quickly build a new computationally generated library of compounds.
And it's fascinating to see, when we introduce this tool to many groups, there's there's so many different use cases and workflows that that flush into people's minds about how they could accelerate their scientific research, because scientists know what they want to do, and if they could have this kind of conversational interface to make life easier instead of having to work through whatever existing systems are in place, regardless of their complexity or simplicity. Like this is a great way to help in a way automate some of the more cognitive high cognitive load tasks that shouldn't take that much effort.
Yeah, adding on to that, like we're not an algorithms developer, right? Like we're a tool orchestrator and aggregator. So like we're not developing novel methods for synthetic routes, but we can really easily integrate like other people's providers. So really think of us as like, Mara is as powerful as the tools it has, but it's extremely extensible and easy to add things on there and kind of build up your repertoire of tools for use and workflows. So, just when we get questions around like, oh, like, can it do this? Can it do that? I'm like, it can kind of do anything. The question is, does it have the tools yet? And so, keep that in mind.
Yeah. Also, as part of the public beta, you do have the ability to create 10 custom tools. So, on top of the 50 credits. So, if you want to try out what tool building is like, feel free to visit mara.nanome.ai.
Perhaps one more question here that we've just had come in is a question about whether or not we'll be working with universities to provide access. Absolutely. So if you are a university academic and you have an interest in being able to deploy Mara in your organization, either in research or as a teaching tool, by all means, please reach out to our sales team. We're really interested in understanding how you'd like to deploy that and how we can help you improve the research and educating you'll be doing.
Another question from Alex. As a group of synthetic organic chemists in drug discovery, we use Revity signals as our ELN. Could you offer a few ideas on how Mara might be able to integrate with and augment signals ELN for organic chemists working in drug discovery?
Actually have a great example that could potentially be implemented based upon that workflow I showed earlier using CDD Vault. So that in that example, when we registered those ideas back into CDD Vault, that was a static registration. But if you were utilizing something like Signals Revity, you'd be able to potentially save those as reaction files directly into an ELN so you can immediately schedule that for synthesis. Furthermore, in that example, hypothetical where we're interacting with Mara to understand the outcome of an experiment, it could be potential to interact with data contained within your ELN interactively and have it as a front-end search tool to search your ELNs in Revity. Just as a couple of potential ideas. But we'd also really like to hear how you think you'd benefit from having Mara and other software vendors integrated together. So by all means, if you wanted to reach out to us and discuss further, we'd love to jump on a call to show you some potential deployments and hear you out on where you think it would be a value proposition to have functionality built out.
There's a question around the current state of VR integration with Mara and what the timeline / roadmap of Mara and VR looks like. Sam, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, just a friendly reminder that like the long-term vision of our company is, Jarvis for molecules. So like we very much see this kind of coming together into a cohesive application. Currently, we do have, we have some prototypes in the mix, but Mara integration will kind of come with Nanome v2.0 and the second generation of our Nanome XR product later this year.
I would like to note that because Mara is a web application and Nanome does have an in-app web browser, you technically can use Mara within the existing Nanome experience.
Yeah, and jumping off that, there's a lot of times now where I'll go on Mara to prepare a workspace and kind of get some information, kind of get everything ready, and then I'll just quick drop it through a tool into the headset, and we're able to like, kind of jump into it. So it already works well as a complement to Nanome 1.x.
Yeah, but in the future, we'll have Mara's own trigger points, whether they be by touch, voice, or gaze. So there's another question here around chemists with little to no programming skills. Should I wait until more tools are built or try Mara now? Sam, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I was actually typing out a response for that. But there's quite a lot of cheminformatics tools already pre-built into Mara. That's pretty great. One of the big things is that the first thing that you want to do is kind of integrate your database and tools, but mostly your database. So say you have CD Vault, where's your structural files and SAR data living, such that you can kind of bring it into Mara to do some analysis. I think it's worth noting that it's very usable today. We are also expanding a lot of our capabilities in our data table support. So where I can use natural language to kind of interact with this data table, while it's adding columns or new rows or doing a very simple analysis, and leveraging tools to get there. So we'll be expanding that a lot more in the coming month or so, such that it's really easy to do SAR analysis using natural language. I think that's going to excite a lot of chemists. So I think there's a lot you can do with it even right now. But in the next month or so, it's going to be really exciting. First of its class.
There's another question around kind of Mara roadmap. What are future functionalities users can anticipate for Mara? Any thoughts there, Sam?
Oh my God, there's so many things. Yeah, we have an aggressive roadmap, so we'll see how it actually pans out. But I mean, a lot of the big areas that we're focusing on are, really making, like, we've been focusing a lot on tool extensibility. Like that's where we think that we can make the biggest impact on organizations, such that we have this informatics infrastructure tool that you can link your data and databases and tools to, and kind of open up this scientific co-pilot. We do want to expand a lot, like I mentioned, on the data table and using natural language to manipulate this kind of data set. And that really is going to drop the barrier to entry down of informatics, kind of data science informatics, to be a lot more focused on an average person or a bench chemist, where they can just, I want to add a new column for synthetic accessibility score. Okay, I want to like graph these in a certain way. Okay, I want to filter these and copy them to a new table, or even capture a new idea on the spot. So we really want to like kind of go down and help the small molecule ideation and discovery. Additionally, we're expanding a lot of the molecular visualization using natural language. So you saw a very, very simple example of asking it to spin, but we can also ask it to color residues or atoms or align structures inside of the molecular viewer. And the idea is that things that would take me a long time to remember or find the command in PyMol, I can just use natural language, and it's kind of embedded in the browser with the context of my conversation. And do a lot more analysis that way. So a lot of where we see things going is very much like, I ask for information about the binding site. It already suggested a visualization for the binding site being highlighted, on the actual molecular visualizer. So those are kind of some key areas there. We have a lot of things that we're working on, but those are some big two that should excite everybody.
Nice.
We have one question here related to what's the difference between the public beta and the actually deployed version in an industry setting? Another great question. I think there's two key take-homes from the public beta. One, it is a multi-tenanted environment. We don't recommend using proprietary data within that ecosystem. So a key first difference between the public beta and what would actually be deployed is the security settings related to using Mara. The second thing that's different between the two would be the ability to have it fully integrated within your organization. So because of that, having the value of Mara is acting as that interface for all of your software and data assets. So within the private deployment of Mara, you're able to actualize that vision.
Yeah, quick note on the public beta. There is also kind of a runtime timeout. So something that's to watch out for in that. But yeah, that's not an issue in the enterprise deployments.
Yeah, I think that's actually a great thing to raise, Edgardo. Definitely one that I should have had there. So in the public beta, we put limits onto how long the codes can actuate and the type of functions that you can utilize. In the full deployment of Mara, those limitations are significantly less restrictive in how you can interact with it.
Yeah, we also, with Python tools, with enterprise customers, we expose the Docker file. So if you want to install CUDA and kind of do more advanced Python tools, you can. So a lot of the like really heavy compute type of things that you'd want to do, or like long running or kind of infinite tool use, like those things are very much kind of oriented for enterprise customers. So this is very much, as Quillon mentioned before, just kind of taste kind of like what the platform is like, and kind of get the concepts. But ultimately, like this is an enterprise product.
Yeah, there was a couple other questions. How many actions are available with 50 credits? So every tool run is 1 credit, and workflows typically in 1 to 5 tool runs. So yeah, it kind of depends what you're trying to achieve, but there is the ability to ask for more credits. So yeah, we're saying what kind of.
We highly encourage you to test things out, and if you'd like more credits, request it. We're happy to give out credits. We very much want feedback and we want usage, so don't feel limited.
There's another question around how Mara differs or complements the Cynthia platform. So if you're referring to the Millipore Sigma, they have an API system where if you wanted to get their synthetic accessibility score, then it's just another tool that you could call. And one of the great things about Mara in the table view that Quillon was showing earlier is that you can set up a really nice dynamic table with multiple different methods of calculating the same thing, and you can just compare them easily without having to know how to set up each one, right? Well, we've hit the 45-minute mark. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the questions. Thank you to the development team as well for putting together an amazing platform. I look forward to seeing how the community engages with it. Thank you, Quillon, for the presentation, and Sam for answering some questions. Until next time.